Good evening, dear listeners, and welcome back to another chilling episode of our scary stories. As the shadows lengthen and the night unfurls its cloak, we invite you to lean in closer, to strain your ears against the whispering wind. Can you feel the prickling at the back of your neck? That's the delicious anticipation of the macabre, the spectral tales that bind us across the ages. Tonight, we unravel a story stitched from the threads of history, fear, and courage. It's a tale deeply rooted in the cobbled streets and foggy seascapes of a town that's no stranger to the supernatural, Salem. Tonight, we delve into the Salem Secret. The scent of dust and ancient parchment filled Madison's nostrils as she climbed into the stifling attic of her grandmother's centuries-old Salem house. Time itself seemed to pause, the hushed silence interrupted only by the creaking of aged wood under her weight. Beneath the cobwebs and relics of a bygone era, she discovered a weathered grimoire, its cover etched with strange symbols. Madison, a vibrant girl of 15, with hair the color of midnight and eyes as blue as a midsummer's sky, was captivated by the town's witch trials history. Not out of morbid fascination, but rather a deeply rooted connection, an ancestry tangled with the trials, as she'd discovered in her family diary. Tendrils of late afternoon sunlight pierced the attic's gloom, casting dancing patterns over the grimoire's time-worn pages. It was filled with illegible script and intricate, haunting illustrations. Yet there was one name that stood out starkly: Morgana. The whispers of her history teachers echoed in Madison's mind, recounting tales of the accused witch who met her end at the hangman's noose. It was here, amidst the weight of forgotten memories and the dust motes twirling in the sunbeams, that Madison read out an incantation, her voice wavering with a mix of trepidation and curiosity. The words felt strange on her tongue, like an old, cryptic lullaby. The runes seemed to pulse with a silent, unseen energy, causing the hairs on Madison's neck to stand on end. Her heartbeat quickened, echoing the silent rhythm that filled the attic. Then, nothing. The energy dissipated as quickly as it had risen, leaving Madison alone once more with her silent, antiquated surroundings. Yet, the stillness felt different, like the calm before a storm. She closed the grimoire, the sudden chill in the air serving as a sharp contrast to the previously stagnant heat. Later that evening, Madison joined her friends Cassidy, Aiden, and Harper at their usual hangout, the Coffee Cauldron. Cassidy, with her riotous red hair and a laugh that lit up any room, served their favorite cinnamon-spiced lattes, all the while chattering about the latest school gossip. Harper, tall and athletic with a heart of gold, and Aiden, the quiet artist whose sketches could breathe life into any canvas, laughed and engaged in their habitual friendly banter. Yet, as Madison watched the steam from her latte curl up into the air, the pulsing rhythm from the attic still echoed in her ears. Unbeknownst to her, the undercurrent of normality was about to be swept away, and the town of Salem was on the brink of a chilling supernatural storm that would unearth its long-forgotten past. From the quaint houses lining Hemlock Street to the lively chatter at the local high school, there was an eerie shift in Salem's ordinary rhythms. A cold wind blew in from the harbor, brushing through the town like a sigh from the past, stirring the age-old trees into whispering ancient secrets. Crows filled the sky, their black silhouettes darkening the mid-morning sun. Madison, attempting to dismiss her unease, found her attention diverted to her English literature class. However, the strange undercurrent was hard to ignore, even within the familiar confines of the school. The old grandfather clock in the corner, usually silent, ticked obnoxiously loud, the sound beating in time with the rhythm from the attic. Meanwhile, Salem's wildlife began behaving oddly. The school's resident cat, a usually aloof creature, hissed and retreated at Madison's approach. Birds that typically filled the courtyards with their cheerful songs now watched in silent vigil from the trees. News of these peculiarities traveled through the small town, setting a scene of underlying dread that trickled into every conversation at the Coffee Cauldron. "Did you see the swans at Hawthorne Park? They just keep going in circles," Aiden mentioned, his sketch pad forgotten, his usual calm demeanor tinged with unease. Madison listened, sipping her latte, her eyes reflecting the orange glow of the cafe's fireplace. She shivered, despite the heat, her mind reeling back to the grimoire, the incantation, and the pulsing energy. Was it all related? Or was she merely stitching together unrelated events, weaving a tapestry of superstition? "What do you think, Madison?" Harper asked, her brow furrowed. Madison merely shrugged, deciding to keep her attic adventures a secret. After all, she didn't want her friends to think she was responsible for the town's oddities. That night, Madison lay awake, her room bathed in the silver glow of the full moon. The rustle of the autumn leaves against her window sounded like hushed whispers, and every creak of the old house seemed amplified, a haunting symphony conducted by the unseen hand of Morgana. As sleep finally claimed her, Madison didn't notice the shadow that loomed outside her window. A wisp of darkness that watched, its form flickering under the moonlight. The town of Salem slumbered, oblivious to the ancient awakening, and the shadows it unearthed. A cold, drizzling rain greeted Salem the following morning, the droplets drumming a relentless tattoo against Madison's window. The air was heavy with the scent of wet earth and autumn leaves, a dismal atmosphere that hung over the town like a shroud. A text from Harper shattered the morning's stillness. Aiden was dead, the message read, found by the riverbank under mysterious circumstances. Madison's heart plummeted, the words on her screen blurring as shock washed over her. The jovial artist with an endearing shyness was no more, his life abruptly extinguished like a candle in the wind. She arrived at the school to a tableau of sorrow. The normally bustling corridors were hushed, the air filled with unshed tears and whispered condolences. Harper clung to Cassidy, their faces pale, their eyes holding the same haunting question, how? News of Aiden's death spread through the town like ripples in a pond, touching every resident with its icy tendrils. The jovial energy of the coffee cauldron was replaced by a somber stillness, the silence broken only by the occasional clink of a cup against a saucer. The circumstances of Aiden's death sent a chill down Madison's spine. The police had found him by the river, a necklace of strange symbols clenched in his hand. Symbols eerily similar to those inscribed on Morgana's grimoire. The coincidence clawed at Madison's thoughts, each piece clicking together in a terrifying puzzle. The burden of guilt started to form a pit in Madison's stomach, the idea that her curiosity may have led to Aiden's death, a bitter pill to swallow. Was the vengeful Morgana real? Had her incantation from the grimoire somehow stirred the wrath of the ancient witch? That night, Madison crept back into the attic, the grimoire cold under her fingertips. As she leafed through the ancient pages, one thing became clear: Aiden's death was not an unfortunate accident. It was a meticulously orchestrated fall, the opening act of a vengeful drama centuries in the making. And Madison, ensnared in her guilt and fear, found herself cast as the unwilling protagonist, facing an adversary that transcended the bounds of time and death. Aiden's life was the first to be claimed, but the question remained: who would be next in line to face the chilling wrath of Morgana? Madison immersed herself in the world of Morgana, each page of the grimoire revealing a tale soaked in fear and betrayal. She sat within the confines of her grandmother's attic, surrounded by forgotten artifacts and memories, her heart pounding in sync with the relentless rain against the roof. The grimoire unveiled Morgana's tragic history. She was a healer, known for her herbal remedies and her gentle spirit. Accused of witchcraft by paranoid townsfolk, she was condemned to hang, her pleas of innocence falling on deaf ears. But Morgana's final words were not pleas. They were a curse against those who had betrayed her, a vow that the descendants of her accusers would pay for their ancestors' sins. Madison felt a chill run down her spine as she absorbed Morgana's words. Were the symbols found on Aiden related to the curse? Had his family line, like hers, been tied to the dark days of the Salem witch trials? Guilt clawed at Madison's insides like a relentless beast. She wished she could confide in Cassidy, share the weight of her secret. But she also knew the terror it would inflict, the potential danger it could pose. She was trapped in a web of ancient history and her own mistakes, the line between the past and the present blurring with each passing moment. Days turned into a dreary blur, the town blanketed under a veil of grief and inexplicable events. Dogs howled at unseen entities, the once chirping birds fell silent, and plants, even in the peak of their bloom, withered overnight. Salem was becoming a town in the grip of a haunting, its every corner echoing with the whispers of an ancient curse. Within this growing unrest, Madison sought solace in her research, each sleepless night bringing her closer to understanding the curse. And with this understanding came a horrifying realization. The awakening of Morgana was not a simple tale of a vengeful spirit. It was a cyclic nightmare, a repeating echo of history, a debt of blood that demanded payment. But how does one repay a debt to a centuries-old curse? Madison was determined to find an answer, even as the shadows of fear grew longer in her heart. She didn't know that Morgana was watching, her wrath as potent as it was on the day she was hanged, her gaze fixed on the town that had forgotten her and on the girl who had invoked her once again. The unsettling shift in Salem's pulse continued, the once lively town now shrouded in an unnatural quiet. The roads were deserted, each resident locked inside, their hearts heavy with the dread of an unseen threat. The high school's empty corridors echoed with the loss of Aiden. The echo amplified when another student, Lee, was found lifeless in her home, surrounded by symbols similar to Aiden's. Madison's fear was cemented into a horrifying certainty. Morgana was claiming the descendants of her accusers one by one, and the witch was far from done. Amid the mounting panic, Madison found herself drawn to Cassidy, seeking comfort in her best friend's unwavering strength. Cassidy's fiery hair seemed like the only vibrant color left in Salem, her spirited nature an odd contrast to the town's oppressive gloom. One evening, as they sat in the shadowy quiet of Madison's room, Madison could no longer bear the weight of her secret. With a deep breath, she unraveled her tale, from the discovery of the grimoire to the dreadful connection she had unearthed. She revealed Morgana's curse, the chilling pattern of deaths, and her heart-wrenching guilt. Cassidy listened in silence, her green eyes reflecting a blend of disbelief and concern. Then, surprising Madison, Cassidy reached out to grip her hand, her touch a comforting warmth. "We'll figure this out, Maddie. You're not alone in this," she assured. Madison felt a wave of relief wash over her. Sharing her secret felt like releasing a breath she'd been holding for too long. But alongside relief, another emotion grew: resolve. Madison was no longer a helpless spectator. She was ready to confront Morgana, ready to end the curse she had inadvertently awakened. Yet, neither of the girls knew that they were now firmly in Morgana's sights. The ancient witch knew Madison had uncovered her secret. And she also knew about Cassidy, the loyal friend who dared to stand beside Madison. The stage was set, the pieces moving according to Morgana's sinister will. As the rain washed over Salem, the town remained oblivious to the tempest brewing in the heart of a young girl, ready to confront a centuries-old curse, to save her town, her friends, and herself from a vengeful witch's wrath. Armed with the knowledge of the grimoire and Cassidy's unyielding support, Madison embarked on a dangerous path. Within the musty attic, under the dim light of an antique lamp, they began to study the grimoire more intensely, seeking any knowledge that could counter Morgana's wrath. Through ancient incantations and protective rituals, they hoped to shield themselves and their loved ones. Each symbol they drew, each chant they whispered, was a defiant stand against the looming specter of the past. However, Morgana wasn't a passive observer. Sensing their efforts, she retaliated, not with physical attacks, but by invading their minds. Terrifying visions filled Madison's dreams, visions of her friends suffering under the witch's wrath. Cassidy experienced similar nightmares, each one more chilling than the last. The psychological torment was draining, a haunting melody that played on their fears. But it also ignited a spark of defiance within them. Each new torment only strengthened their resolve to challenge Morgana. A sense of urgency propelled them forward as Madison deciphered a spell from the grimoire that promised protection. Under the watchful moon, they gathered in Madison's backyard, forming a circle of salt and herbs as the grimoire instructed. They recited the incantation, their voices melding into one determined whisper against the quiet night. The spell ended with a silent ripple of energy, a sensation that made their skin tingle and their breath catch. Was it working? Had they managed to shield themselves from Morgana's curse? They couldn't be sure. The grimoire offered no guarantees, its instructions a beacon of hope in the engulfing darkness. As the night deepened, a wind rustled through the trees, carrying a chilling laughter that echoed around them. It was a chilling reminder that Morgana was watching, waiting, and far from defeated. They had thrown down the gauntlet, challenging an ancient witch with their unwavering courage. As they retreated back into the house, they knew they had embarked on a dangerous path. They were ready to protect Salem, to protect each other, but the question remained, was Salem ready for the approaching storm? As the days passed, the town of Salem sank further into fear. The ever-present chill was more than just the result of the autumnal weather, but a reflection of the dread that clung to the town. The curse was no longer an abstract fear, it was an imminent threat, claiming its victims without mercy. To the girl's horror, the protective spell seemed ineffective when Harper was found lifeless in her home. Her once vibrant eyes were now vacant, another life claimed by Morgana's wrath. The news hit Cassidy and Madison like a cold wave, the loss of their friend a painful reminder of their failed attempts to shield their loved ones. Yet, in this desperate time, an unexpected ally appeared, Dr. Jacob Ward, a history professor at Salem University. Known for his expertise in the town's history and his discreet interest in the occult, Dr. Ward had noticed the strange patterns, the haunting similarities with the trial's history, and the symbols linked to the victims. Skeptical but intrigued, he agreed to aid Madison and Cassidy. They met at his old, book-filled office, the air heavy with the scent of musty tomes and aged wood. It was here that Madison presented the grimoire, its darkly etched cover a stark contrast to the neatly stacked academic books. Hours turned into days as they studied the grimoire, the ancient text shedding light on Morgana's powers and her curse's intricacies. Among the cryptic pages, they found a glimmer of hope, a possible method to appease Morgana's vengeful spirit, a heartfelt apology from a descendant of her accusers, uttered at the place of her unjust death. Hope, however fleeting, ignited a new fire within them. If they could locate Morgana's execution site, they could perform the ritual and, hopefully, end the nightmare. But Salem had changed over centuries, its history buried under layers of progress and forgetfulness. In their race against time, Madison, Cassidy, and Dr. Ward plunged into the labyrinth of Salem's past, knowing that each tick of the clock was a step closer to another victim, another friend lost to the ancient curse. Meanwhile, Morgana watched, her ancient anger swirling within the autumn winds, her gaze fixed on Cassidy, the only friend left untouched by her wrath. The game was far from over, and Morgana was ready to claim her next piece. With a renewed sense of purpose, Madison, Cassidy, and Dr. Ward delved into the annals of Salem's history. They sifted through ancient documents and town records, their quest leading them to the forgotten outskirts of Salem. There, obscured by time and nature, lay the long-abandoned Gallows Hill, where Morgana and others had met their fateful end. The air on the hill was thick with the melancholy of forgotten souls. Overgrown grass and gnarled trees bore silent witness to the tragedies of the past. Yet, amidst this desolation, they had found a spark of hope. This was the stage on which they could attempt to undo the harm and offer an apology to Morgana. As twilight draped Salem in shades of crimson and gold, Madison, Cassidy, and Dr. Ward prepared for the ritual. They drew a protective circle around themselves, lighting candles that cast flickering shadows over the age-worn gallows. Madison clutched the grimoire, her heart pounding as she readied herself to face Morgana. With a deep breath, she began the ritual. Each word echoed around the deserted hill, carried on the wind like a plea for forgiveness. Morgana, we, the descendants of your accusers, offer our heartfelt apologies for the wrong done to you. For a moment, there was silence. Then, with a gust of wind, their candles flickered out. The hill was plunged into darkness, save for the light of the waning moon. A shiver of anticipation ran down their spines as they held their breath, waiting. Suddenly, a chill filled the air, colder than any autumn night. Madison's heart pounded in her chest as a figure emerged from the shadows. Morgana stood before them, her spectral form illuminated by the ethereal moonlight. Her eyes, burning with centuries-old anger, met Madison's, a silent challenge passing between them. Your apology, Morgana's voice echoed around the hill, is but the beginning of your penance. The ritual had worked, but their trial was far from over. As Madison, Cassidy, and Dr. Ward watched the spectral figure of Morgana fade away, they knew the final confrontation was imminent. The stage was set for a showdown centuries in the making, a fight not just for their lives, but for the very soul of Salem. Under the waning moon, Madison, Cassidy, and Dr. Ward prepared for the culmination of their battle. The air was charged, the age-old Gallows Hill humming with an unseen energy as they stood their ground against Morgana's impending wrath. With the grimoire in hand, Madison began chanting the final part of the ritual. Each word seemed to hang in the frigid night air, an incantation of penance and appeasement. Cassidy and Dr. Ward watched, their faces set with grim determination, their fingers clutching amulets crafted from the grimoire's instructions. But Morgana would not be subdued easily. Her spectral form materialized, a terrifying figure bathed in the cold moonlight. Her laughter echoed around them, a chilling sound that made the hairs on their necks stand on end. Morgana stretched out her hand, her eyes fixed on Cassidy. Your friend, Morgana's voice resonated, is the last of the line that wronged me. Cassidy suddenly gasped, her body rigid, her hand clutching her chest. She was in Morgana's grip, teetering on the brink of the same cruel fate as the others. "No!" Madison cried out. Fear clawed at her heart, but she pushed it aside, focusing all her energy on the incantation. Her voice rose against the chilling wind, a beacon of defiance against the ancient witch. The air crackled around them as Madison chanted, a battle of wills playing out under the indifferent gaze of the stars. Cassidy's face was pale, her breaths coming in shallow gasps, yet her eyes held a glimmer of resolve. Time seemed to stretch, each second an agonizing eternity, as they awaited the outcome. Madison's voice, though hoarse, did not waver. Her final word hung in the air, resonating with a power that silenced the night. And then silence. The oppressive chill lifted as if a malevolent shroud had been pulled away. Cassidy's gasps eased, her body relaxing as she slumped forward, freed from Morgana's hold. Before them, Morgana's form flickered, her spectral figure growing less distinct. Her laughter no longer echoed. Instead, a sense of quiet resignation lingered. They had challenged the wrath of a witch, a spectral entity born from centuries of anger. The confrontation had ended, but as they stood in the silence of the gallows hill, they knew the final act was yet to come. This was their stand, their fight against a spectral adversary. But was it enough to save Salem and themselves from the deadly curse? As dawn broke over Salem, Madison, Cassidy, and Dr. Ward, exhausted but unyielding, faced Morgana for the last time. The spectral witch, her form now wavering like an uncertain flame, regarded them with an unreadable gaze. "Morgana," Madison began, her voice steady despite her fatigue, "we have shown our remorse, acknowledged the injustice done to you, and performed the ritual of appeasement. We ask you to release us from your curse." Morgana's gaze softened, her spectral form flickering in the soft light of dawn. "Your actions have been observed, your penance acknowledged," she intoned, her voice now just a whisper in the wind. "The cycle of retribution ends here." With that, Morgana's figure faded, her presence dissipating like mist in the morning sun. A sigh of relief swept over them as they realized the truth. Morgana's curse had been lifted. As they descended the hill, the town of Salem seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The oppressive weight lifted, replaced by a hesitant sense of normalcy. Birds took to the skies once more, their songs a melody of freedom and relief. But the scars of Morgana's curse remained, a somber reminder of the friends they had lost. Madison felt a profound sense of change within her, an understanding of her role as the reluctant custodian of the Salem Secret. The grimoire found a new home in Madison's care. She committed herself to preventing a similar horror, using her knowledge to maintain a watchful eye over her town. Cassidy stood by her side, their friendship now strengthened by the trials they had faced together. Madison paid tribute to her lost friends, sharing their stories, ensuring they lived on in the heart of Salem. Their lives were the true Salem Secret, a testament to their bravery and their unwillingness to succumb to fear. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, life in Salem returned to its usual rhythm. Yet, a subtle change was evident. An undercurrent of respect for the town's history, a lingering sense of the supernatural, hung in the air. Salem was forever haunted by its past, its residents now custodians of an ancient secret. A chilling tale spun around the fate of a young girl, a grimoire, and a vengeful witch named Morgana. We've now arrived at the end of tonight's journey, having ventured into the heart of Salem, traversed the realms of the past, and come face to face with the ghostly specter of a witch wronged centuries ago. As we part ways, remember, our dear listeners, that the veil between the ordinary and the supernatural is often more transparent than we believe. And sometimes, all it takes is a dusty grimoire, an ancient curse, or a brave soul to unveil it. Thank you for joining us on this spectral journey into the Salem Secret. Sleep well, listeners, and remember, keep your eyes open and your senses alert, for our world is filled with scary stories, waiting for the right moment to whisper their tales into your ear. This is our Scary Stories signing off for tonight.